Arata is a total loser, lacking charm, and his crush was taken away because he's too shy. But everything changes when he learns he's adopted, and his 5 sisters aren't blood-related, freeing him from any awkwardness. In a wealthy Tokyo neighborhood, a self-made entrepreneur from Emanchian thrives. This man, a fan of romance, has 7 kids living under one roof, all bonded in a unique way, the Shianji family. The eldest, Arata, seeks advice from his younger brother, Shion, on how to win over a girl. Shion, however, declines to help. When asked about his crush, Arata admits he only thinks she's cute, not dateable. Shion is baffled that Arata, heir to the Shianji name, can't attract anyone, but Arata blames his lack of faith and fate. Suddenly, their 5 sisters, Uka, Kotono, Banri, Minami, and Seiha, appear, suspecting the brothers are discussing girls. Shion retorts, claiming Arata is actually curious about Uka's measurements. This infuriates Uka, who commands their dog to attack Arata, and as it bites him, the sisters declare it's karma for his behavior. Arata insists he would never be interested in his sisters, but Seiha reminds him of the incident with Kotono. He clarifies it was a misunderstanding, and Banri backs him up, saying boys often get curious about their sisters, but Seiha warns of taboo. Minami thinks Arata is actually cool, but when he tries to thank her, she punches him, claiming her reflexes are sharp from playing Street Fighter. Uka then reminds the boys about Kotono's upcoming birthday. Shion can go, but Arata claims he has other plans. When Kotono asks, he promises to attend. On their way to school, people comment on how lucky the brothers are to live with such beautiful sisters. Yet at school, Arata vents to Shion about the harsh reality. They always face punishment while the sisters escape unscathed, with their father siding with the girls. Shion gets why people admire Banri, the charming one, Seiha, the smart one, Minami, the athletic one, Uka, the future leader, and Kotono, the pure beauty. But Arata sees them as mischievous sisters, and when reminded of Kotono's confession, he had to reject her feelings. Out of the blue, Arata spots Lala through the window, and Shion realizes how Arata's past with his sisters has made him timid around girls. Back home, Arata debates sending Lala a friend request, frustrated that Shion was right about his passivity. Uka enters, asking him for his school notes. She thanks him as her twin, but he corrects her, stating they're fraternal twins. While she jots down notes, Arata can't help but notice her outfit, and when he comments on it, she tells him to keep his eyes in check. She then inquires about his crush, and flustered, he admits it's Lala, which she recognizes. She mentions being in the same committee as Lala and offers to set them up, but he stops her. He insists he has his own methods for approaching girls, making Uka upset as she storms out. Meanwhile, Kotono sits in her room gazing at a family photo, but her eyes keep drifting to Arata. As Kotono's birthday approaches, Arata ponders what life would be like if he weren't her brother, but a sight of Lala with a man he assumes is her boyfriend crushes him. On the weekend, dressed to impress, Arata heads out for Kotono's birthday party, running into Uka, who compliments his outfit. The siblings gather at the dining table waiting for their father, but an argument breaks out. Uka discovers Minami lost the AirPods she lent her, and they start hurling insults, wishing they weren't siblings. Arata, fed up, demands they stop. He reminds them they'll always be siblings, and the others smile, appreciating his words. Their father, Kanami, arrives, and they kick off the party. Before they toast to Kotono's birthday, Kanami has an announcement. To everyone's shock, he reveals they aren't actually siblings, but he loves them all as if they were, as they are all adopted. He clarifies that while Minami and Shion are true twins, the rest are not, sharing this because of a promise made to their mother. He urges them to continue the celebration, but as dinner is served, they're all still reeling from the revelation. Later, the siblings gather in a room, and when a maid approaches with tea, Banri dismisses her for privacy. While the others are tense, Minami remains cheerful, attributing it to her father's bright spirit. Uka feels betrayed, wishing their father had told them sooner, but Seiya believes Kotono's birthday was the right moment, honoring their father's promise. As the eldest, they ask Banri if she remembers anything from when they were adopted, but she recalls little and deems it unimportant. She reassures them that what matters is their love for one another, and they'll always be siblings. They applaud her speech, lifting their spirits, and head to bed, but Arata lingers deep in thought. In his room, Arata reflects on the day's events, deciding to take a bath to clear his mind. He notices something odd but brushes it off and steps in. However, he locks eyes with Kotono, who's in the bath, and after a moment of shock, he bolts, apologizing. Instead of being angry, Kotono asks him to wash her back, and he obliges just like old times, which she enjoys. As he tells her to scrub her own back, she admits she prefers it when he does it. Meanwhile, Uka relaxes in the kitchen when Shion joins her. Uka, shaken by recent events, inquires if Shion heard anything from Arata, revealing how deeply it affects her to learn he isn't her twin. Shion reassures her that Arata shares her feelings. As the Shionji family's heir, Arata bears the weight of being the older brother, but unbeknownst to them, Kotono is giving him a gentle hug from behind in the bathroom. Shion informs Uka that since they aren't siblings, they can legally marry. And although the thought of marrying Arata disgusts her, Uka acknowledges Shion's honesty. She demands Shion to make Arata stop staring at her, but Shion defends his former brother, claiming he's just a typical young man with hormones. Curious, she asks Shion what transpired between Arata and Kotono in the past, although Shion knows he has promised Arata to keep it under wraps. Uka tells Shion that while others tease Arata about the incident, they all recognize he isn't the type to pursue his own sister. Shion reveals the truth, shocking Uka. Kotono confessed her feelings for Arata even when they were siblings, but he turned her down, not wanting an inappropriate relationship. It was Kotono who attempted to force Arata's affection, leading to a compromising position that the girls witnessed, realizing they weren't truly siblings. They understood that things could escalate further. In the bathroom, Arata urges Kotono to remove her hands, but she reminds him that since they aren't blood relatives, they can be together and even marry. She questions if she's a bad girl, but Arata shifts into Big Brother mode, assuring her that despite their lack of blood ties, he will always protect her until she finds a husband. Kotono returns to the bathtub, commenting on how Arata is both the kindest and harshest person she knows. He leaves, wishing her a happy birthday, while she hopes he acknowledges her feelings. Unbeknownst to Arata, someone is observing him as he exits the bathroom. He heads to his room, pondering if Kotono's actions were influenced by recent events, and upon entering, he finds Seiya studying and waiting for him. Without hesitation, she asks where he has been. Not wanting to reveal the truth, he fabricates a story about wandering around the house. Seiya comments on how his small room feels surprisingly spacious, reminding them of the time they played rock, paper, scissors to decide who would get the biggest room, and Arata recalls his loss. As Seiya chats away, Arata wonders what she wants, and to his astonishment, she suddenly pushes him onto the bed. She climbs on top of him, insisting they must keep it a secret, pressing her body against his, drawing him closer to her danger zone. Arata begins to suspect Seiya might be like Kotono, but he feels relieved when she claims she has no interest in him. She discloses that she witnessed him in the bath with Kotono, having seen their entire interaction, but before he can demand an explanation, he pushes her off to prevent an explosion of emotions. Seiya tells him she has always been aware of Kotono's feelings, but now that they know they aren't true siblings, Kotono has lost all inhibitions. She commends him for managing the situation well, but to ensure he doesn't succumb to his sister's advances, she feels the need to prevent any romantic developments. He asks if she has no other methods besides climbing on top of him, and Seiya replies that since she has no feelings for him, she sees no problem with her approach. She reminds him that sibling relationships can lead to questionable offspring, but after today's events, that rule no longer applies, and Kotono's desires won't be hindered by their sibling status. She suggests it could even happen between them, and while Seiya dislikes the thought of them being intimate, she acknowledges it's not impossible. As she leaves, she expresses her relief that Arata didn't give in, but once outside, she questions whether she compromised when she was on top of him. The following morning, Arata wakes up feeling terrible after the emotional roller coaster of the previous night. Stepping out, he is taken aback by Banri and Kotono in nurse outfits, with Banri explaining it's her uniform that she wanted to try on, and she decided to dress Kotono as well. When Banri asks if he likes how attractive they look, he says no, causing her to cry, and demand he admit he likes them, but he refuses, feeling flustered. They then head to school, joined by Shion, and observe. As other boys gawk at their sisters, Shion wonders how they'd react if they knew they weren't actually siblings. Seeing his sisters so composed leads Shion to believe girls are better liars than boys, and while Arata agrees, he knows deep down that their sisters are just as affected by recent events. They carry on with their school day as if nothing has changed, but after classes, Arata realizes things have shifted, trying to convince himself otherwise. Suddenly, Minami appears, surprising Arata since she's not in practice like usual. As they walk home, Arata praises her dedication to sports, noting her numerous trophies and her reputation as a future Olympian. Out of nowhere, she is surrounded by fans asking to lick her toes and drink her bathwater. After they leave, Minami reveals her fan base grew after a photo shoot in a men's outfit. He asks if she wants to enjoy her day off from practice, but to his surprise, Minami tells him her coach advised her to study since her grades are failing. Though Minami excels in athletics, she's also the biggest airhead. As the older brother, Arata decides to tutor her. He takes her to a karaoke room for private studying, and while teaching, he can't help but notice how beautiful she looks up close. While Arata is busy explaining, he doesn't notice Minami has become distracted and chosen a song to sing, and when she attempts to solve the questions, she gets them all wrong. However, she remains unfazed by her mistakes and starts singing poorly, altering the lyrics to reflect her life as a tennis player, and despite wanting her to study, Arata enjoys the moment with his sister. After their session ends, they exit the room, but Arata quickly hides from someone, and when Minami sees who it is, she spots Lala, the girl Arata likes, with her boyfriend. On their way home, they discuss the previous night's events. And when Arata asks for her opinion, she states that since they aren't their father's children, they need to find their real parents. She expresses sympathy for Kotono as the youngest, and Arata realizes that Minami is not only smart in some aspects, but also a caring sister. She playfully teases Arata, saying that since he's not really her big brother, she can treat him like a senpai, but he urges her not to say that out loud, wanting to keep their complicated relationship private. However, Minami insists that what matters is the bond they've formed throughout their lives, reminding him that he knows who he truly is, so he shouldn't feel sad about not winning over the girl he likes. He asks how she knows about Lala, and Minami reveals that Uka told her, making Arata realize how much of a gossip Uka is. Minami reassures Arata that as his former sister, she understands what a good person he is, so he should stay positive even if Lala hasn't seen his true self, unlike his sisters, which touches him. Back at home, Minami hands Uka a cake, delighting her, and returns her earpods, apologizing for misplacing them earlier. Uka takes the bribe, handing Minami the earpods and telling her to keep them, which peacefully resolves their earlier conflict. The following morning, Arata brushes his teeth as usual, reflecting on Kotono's actions from the previous day. Exiting the bathroom, he encounters her in the hallway. Their awkward greeting hints at their shared history. Seiya suddenly appears, teasing him for still recalling the bathroom incident, catching him off guard. When he calls her name, he remembers to use Seiya-chan as she requested, which brings her a hint of satisfaction. She questions if he's anxious about his relationship with Kotono. He feels no concern, but Seiya is troubled, having developed feelings. Minami bursts in, channeling a Street Fighter vibe, bragging about their gaming session and her numerous victories over him. Upon calling Arata senpai, Seiya is taken aback, reminding Minami that senpai should be someone mature, not a fool like Arata. As the girls depart, Arata wonders why his day has to start off like this. At school, Arata freezes upon spotting Lala, opting to remain inactive. Uka mocks him, suggesting he confess his love, but when he mentions Lala's boyfriend, she claims he lost his charm after being rejected. Uka's friends call for her, and as she joins them, she mentions plans to visit a sea park for Kotona's birthday. Watching Uka, Arata is astonished by her popularity, contrasting it with the gremlin he knows at home. Uka's friends spot Arata and comment on his attractiveness, expressing a desire to date him and be his baby mama. Uka dismisses their interest, insisting Arata is a loser who can't attract a decent partner, yet she can't help but blush at her own praise. As they head to class, Arata hears about the sea park trip, hoping for a drama-free day. The next day, they arrive at the sea park for Kotona's birthday, and Uka and Minami rush to take a picture with the mascot. Minami announces her hunger, prompting Banri to invite Arata to accompany her for food. Soon after, they gather food for everyone, but the mascot has vanished, leaving Arata and Banri with the meals. Arata calls out for their friends, but when they don't respond, he assumes they're on a ride, and Banri has a thought. She declares they're on a date, just the two of them, confident they'll run into the others, leaving Arata to finish all the food. Like a couple, Banri clings to Arata's strong arms, making him nervous despite her sisterly charm. He feels his arms pressed against her softness, blushing, and when he reminds her they're siblings, she insists no one knows that. As Arata blushes deeper at her curves, Banri playfully teases him, claiming she knows he's enjoying the moment. Banri apologizes for her teasing, saying her curves are hard to manage, especially for someone inexperienced like him. Walking side by side, Banri tells him he should feel lucky to have such a stunning girl by his side. Though it annoys him, Arata notices the jealous stares from the other guys around them, all thanks to Banri. Suddenly, she offers him a chance to touch her melons as a joke, and he turns as red as a tomato, begging her to stop. Climbing the stairs, Arata can't help but admire the beautiful view, but he trips, feeling utterly embarrassed. She extends her hand to help him up, and when he takes it, she calls him cute. The two enjoy their private date while the others are off having their own fun. Arata keeps trying to call, and after several attempts, he finally reaches Cheyenne, who tells him their location. However, they're quite far apart, so they decide to just enjoy themselves. The girls speculate about how Banri will tease Arata, making him wish they weren't siblings. They shift their focus to the birthday girl Kotano, encouraging her to enjoy her special day by riding all the attractions. Back with Arata, he and Banri take a break after all the rides. While Banri feels hungry, he isn't after all the food he had. As she bites into a churro, Arata can't help but admire her genuine smile behind her playful demeanor. Curious about her thoughts on their father's announcement, he directly asks her. She shares that while she was initially shocked, she wants to know more, revealing how much she's contemplated it. She inquires about his thoughts, and when he expresses a desire for their sibling bond to remain unchanged, her eyes sparkle, calling him adorable. She affectionately ruffles his hair, reminiscent of how she comforted him when Uka and the others made him cry. Banri vows to protect all her siblings as the eldest, even if it costs her life. This reminds Arata of Banri's unwavering dedication to their family, making her the coolest big sister anyone could wish for. Suddenly, a clumsy little girl appears with drinks, slipping and sending her drink, flying toward Banri. Arata quickly intervenes, shielding Banri and getting soaked in the process. The little girl apologizes, but Arata kindly reassures her that it's all right. Banri expresses concern for him, saying he shouldn't have done that. But like her, Arata insists he will protect everyone as her little brother. This realization makes Banri see just how much of a man Arata has become. Just then, the others arrive, and upon seeing Arata drenched, they question if Banri got too excited and nearly drowned him. They continue to the next ride, and as they walk, Banri asks to hold Arata's hand. When he inquires about her intentions, she seizes his hand, insisting she simply wants to hold it. That evening, as they play at the bridge, pretending to be princesses, the boys and Kotono step away to use the restroom, giving Seiha a chance to update the others on Kotono and Arata's situation. After sharing the news, they express disbelief that Kotono would dare to cling to Arata with her schemes, pressing Seiha for details on his response. She reveals that Arata, being a good brother, managed to talk Kotono down and halted her advances. She reassures them that Arata harbors no inappropriate feelings for his sisters, having tested this herself. When they ask how she verified it, she coolly explains that she mounted him to check if his heart raced or if he reacted, but thankfully, neither occurred. Seiya clarifies that she shared this because she believes they need to intervene before anything escalates, and they agree to avoid confronting Kotono to prevent a panic. At that moment, Aoka chimes in, revealing that Kotono had previously attempted something similar, and Arata took the blame, leading to him being labeled a creep. This realization hits Seiha. Her father's announcement about their lack of blood relation likely spurred Kotono's desire for Arata's taboo offspring. Banri steps in to calm them, advising against jumping to conclusions just yet. She shares that she spoke with their father after his announcement, and when they inquire about the conversation, she mentions her quest to learn about her origins, discovering that as an orphan, her parents' whereabouts remain unknown. She proposes they keep a low profile and monitor the situation, which everyone agrees to. As they head to the merchandise store, some girls are eager, excited to grab action figures. Seeing Kotono's normal behavior brings Arata relief. She seems just like her usual self. Despite their father's shocking announcement, he's glad to see them still enjoying each other's company, convinced nothing will change between them. Suddenly, fireworks light up the sky, and they revel in the moment together as siblings. Later, while the others shop, Arata spots a girl resembling Lala, causing a moment of anxiety. Uka appears, noticing his unease, and invites him to walk alongside her. She muses about how strange it feels knowing they aren't true twins, but Arata interrupts, assuring her she'll always be his twin, regardless. This prompts Uka to reminisce about their childhood belief in twin telepathy, claiming they always understood each other's thoughts. Arata feels flustered by her words and asks why she suddenly brought that up. To his surprise, Uka confesses her love for him, making him realize everything is about to shift. Days earlier at school, Shion had asked Arata if he ever viewed any of their sisters romantically, but instead of answering, Arata questioned why he was curious. Shion explained that since they are no longer siblings, having children is no longer taboo, mentioning that Kotono has even shot or aimed at Arata, but Arata reassured him he never saw his sisters in that light. However, after Uka's confession, he begins to see her as more than just a sister, but as a potential romantic partner. Yet, Uka clarifies to Arata that her love is platonic, easing his tension and convincing him that even if the world turned upside down, she would never view him as a romantic option. He teases her, calling her a tsundere playing hard to get, and she walks away, reminding him to bring back souvenirs. While he laughs it off, Shion's words about seeing his sisters romantically start to gnaw at him. Meanwhile, Uka walks alone, unable to shake off her confession to Arata, realizing she felt jealousy towards Kotono after hearing how Kotono expressed her love for him. The next morning, Arata is busy working out in the home gym, sculpting his impressive abs, when Minami enters, eager to join him. He expresses enthusiasm about her joining the workout, but she tells him to dial it down since it's early. She commends him for his dedication to training, reminding him how their father used to push him to his limits to mold him into a leader. Yet, Arata still struggles to see the mental benefits of that rigorous training. Arata respects Minami for her unwavering commitment to training, striving to become an Olympian. Though she brushes off his compliment, a deep blush spreads across her cheeks. Unbeknownst to Arata the previous night, while the girls were at the souvenir shop, they noticed Uka and Arata were missing, prompting Minami to search for them. To her astonishment, she overheard Uka confessing her love to Arata. Since then, Minami has been anxious about how to address that incident with Arata, not wanting to become their children's aunt anytime soon. As she ponders, Arata tells her to stop slacking off, prompting Minami to quickly perform some dumbbell flies to feign normalcy, but Arata critiques her form. Gathering her courage, she asks Arata if anything happened between him and Uka, though he remains oblivious to what she's referring to. Arata reassures her that while he often argues with Uka, they share a strong bond, which is not what Minami wants to hear right now. Understanding the situation, she exits the room, unable to bear the weight of her thoughts and unsure how to handle it. Later, after completing his workout, Arata heads to the bathroom, reflecting on Minami's comments about his relationship with Uka. Suddenly, as he opens the bathroom door, he finds Seiha there, clad in her last plot armor. While Arata feels flustered, Seiha remains unfazed. She remarks on how they are going through experiences typical of many rom-com protagonists, but unlike them, Seiha doesn't send Arata flying. When Arata attempts to shut the door, he notices Seiha's clothes blocking it, forcing him to pick them up and toss them into the laundry basket in the bathroom, all while avoiding looking at her in the shower. When he finally glances at her, he realizes Seiha is acting just like before, unlike him, who is plagued by inappropriate thoughts. He spots Seiha's ring, the one their mother left behind, and asks if it finally fits her. She replies that it's a bit loose, but she refuses to part with it, cherishing the memory of their mother. Later, while alone in his room, Bonri knocks on Arata's door, asking for permission to enter. As she enters, she starts playfully mocking him for his spotless room, recalling how their father would scold him for his messy habits. Curious, he inquires about her presence, and she dances around the topic, claiming she just wanted to see his room. Yet, she nonchalantly browses his laptop, asking if he has any risque videos. To his shock, Bonri spots the title of a limited edition Mia Khalifa video, prompting him to snatch the laptop away, questioning how she bypassed his password. Embarrassingly, he realizes the title was visible in his email notifications, meaning she didn't need to enter any passwords. While Arata feels embarrassed, Bonri is actually relieved to discover her brother appreciates cultured content like Johnny Sins and Mia Khalifa. Out of the blue, she suggests they go on a date. The following day, during their outing, she takes him to a phone store, knowing he's been wanting an upgrade for ages, and he appreciates her thoughtfulness. However, she starts teasing him, suggesting they should hit a hotel afterward for some hot yoga until dawn. When it's time to pick a new phone, Arata makes his choice swiftly, and when Banri asks about his quick decision, he admits he doesn't care much about the design. Banri then rambles about how people select phones like partners, claiming that if someone prioritizes features, they value personality over looks. Yet Banri argues that appearances do matter, especially if Arata ends up with an annoying partner. At least he could admire her pretty face instead of an ugly one. The saleswoman arrives with the phone, and upon noticing Banri next to Arata, she offers them a couple's discount. Though Arata wants to refuse, Banri pretends to be his girlfriend, insisting they'll take the deal, but he quickly declines. Afterward, Arata ponders why Banri suddenly invited him on a date, but his thoughts are interrupted when she spots an ice cream stand. While enjoying ice cream, she reminisces about a past ice cream squabble, and Arata recalls how Minami accidentally devoured Kotono's treat. Since Kotono was too shy, Uka defended her against Minami, igniting a brawl among the siblings. However, due to her fear of confrontations, Kotono would hide in the closet whenever she felt down, earning her the nickname the Closet Fairy from her sisters. This reminds Arata of Banri's childhood fear of the supernatural, but she tells him to be quiet, as the thought of Casper the friendly ghost still unnerves her. Banri then asks Arata if anything is bothering him, assuring him that as his older sister, she's got his back, and he reassures her that all is well. Meanwhile, Kotono sits in her room gazing at photos from their birthday trip, and when she spots Arata in one, she finds herself staring at him longer. Suddenly, she receives a message from Banri in the sisters' group chat, showing her on a date with Arata, enjoying ice cream, which fills Kotono with jealousy, but she refrains from overreacting and saves the picture. Back on their date, Banri surprises Arata by suggesting they continue, but then she suddenly reads an urgent message on her phone and tells him she has to leave immediately. Before departing, Arata suggests she should go out with a proper boyfriend next time, and while Banri blushes, she playfully warns him not to get ahead of himself. As she walks away, everyone she passes stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend that someone so stunning exists. Then, Banri calls Minami, expressing her frustration that she couldn't get Arata to open up about his situation with Uka, even after their date. Minami, however, remains unconvinced that nothing transpired, still believing Uka confessed her feelings to Arata, so she messages Banri, claiming she must have misheard Uka's declaration. Realizing she sent the message to the sisters' group chat, she quickly deletes it, praying that no one noticed. Just then, Uka appears in the bathroom, asking for her turn to bathe, and while Minami feels anxious, she's relieved that Uka didn't see the message. Unbeknownst to Minami, Kotono caught a glimpse of the message before it was deleted, and she can't believe she now has a romantic rival. Later, they share dinner, and when Arata glances at Seiya, who seems troubled, he can't shake the feeling that she's been dealing with something for a while. He encounters her alone, and, despite initially ignoring her, he eventually asks if she's all right. To his surprise, Seiya reveals she's been wanting to play Twister, and since he asked, she invites him to join her. Curious, he questions her sudden interest in Twister, and she explains that after visiting his room, she's been having inappropriate thoughts about him, so she needs to see if she wants to get close. Arata hesitates to join, but when Seiya reminds him of how she helped him during his test, he gives in and agrees to play Twister. As the game begins, Arata deliberately keeps his distance from Seiya to avoid contact, but she tries to close the gap, hoping to provoke a reaction to gauge her feelings. After a few rounds, Seiya comments on his reluctance, so in the next round, she positions herself provocatively, making it hard for any guy to resist. Arata nearly drools, declaring his forfeit, but Seiya insists he can't back out, forcing him to continue. In the next round, Arata must place his foot on the blue spot, which is right beneath Seiya. He tries to be cautious, but ends up bumping into her soft rice cakes, causing him to malfunction from the unexpected sensation. Suddenly, Seiya starts talking about human hormones, explaining how dopamine is released during victories, while oxytocin comes into play when someone wants to do hot yoga with another. She wonders at what point she transitions from dopamine to oxytocin when she's with Arata, whom she sees as someone who can make her heart race. In a surprising twist, she adopts a position reminiscent of Mia Khalifa, making Arata wish he were Johnny's sins. He He starts to lose focus, but then Seiya suddenly collapses, dropping her rice cakes onto Arata, claiming her muscles gave out. Arata can't believe he just felt his sister's rice cakes against him. To Seiya's relief, she assures Arata that she didn't develop any romantic feelings for him during the game, allowing her to return to her normal life. As Seiya departs, she thanks Arata for his assistance, leaving him frustrated and questioning what just transpired. Just then, Uka appears, having overheard his frustration, and invites him to join her for a gaming session later. This makes Arata wonder why Uka would suddenly want to play games with him alone, assuming it's simply because she enjoys his company. He recalls how Uka would put him in submission holds whenever she lost, but what troubles him more is her unexpected confession of love. They dive into the game, Uka bubbling with enthusiasm as if it's the greatest game ever, while Arata remains composed. In her excitement, she leans against his leg, unaware of her closeness. But that radiant smile, it makes him see her as his cute little sister. Uka scores victories against Arata in the initial rounds, but soon he finds his rhythm and defeats her repeatedly. She's left crushed by the tally of her defeats. Suddenly, she announces her need for a bathroom break, but as she moves behind him, she playfully puts him in a chokehold, like old times. As Arata pleads for her to release him, claiming both he and his in-game character are perishing, he worries more about her grip and the beast he's trying not to awaken. Fed up with her antics, Arata uses his strength to flip the situation, pinning Uka to the floor, claiming he's hurt. But then he realizes their position, and looking down, he sees Uka staring at him like a lion eyeing its prey. She remarks on how he's a man now, catching him off guard. Quickly, she exits the room, knowing she can't compete with Arata, secretly wishing he would take charge. Arata is left puzzled by her words about being a real man. Fatigued, he decides to hit the hay, unaware that Katona is next door, overhearing their father calling for a father-son chat. His father first checks if the siblings are all right after the big news, and Arata replies they've become more open since then. To his surprise, his father asks if he's found someone special. Meanwhile, the girls are engrossed in a romantic series where a guy proposes on a bridge. Bonri finds it romantic for a guy to declare love in nature, while Uka feels uneasy about a girl getting proposed to outdoors. They ask her about her ideal scenario, and she dreams of a rich alpha proposing in a fancy restaurant with $1 million ring. Seiya tells her to ease up on the fantasies, and when asked the same question, she shares her desire to marry someone who has everything planned out, from kids to yoga sessions. Minami abruptly shuts down the discussion, stating that what truly matters is the person proposing, a sentiment they all agree with. As they head back to their rooms, Kotono struggles to contain her emotions, and when she finally snaps, she declares her love for Arata. Bonri attempts to soothe her, thinking she loves him like a brother, but Kotono insists she loves Arata and wants to marry him. After everything she's witnessed, she declares her sisters as rivals, vowing not to back down. Back with Arata, his father expresses concern about him not having a wife as the future family heir, and out of curiosity, Arata asks what made him choose their mother. He jokes about falling for her creamy plots, but ultimately confesses he was captivated by her powerful, radiant spirit. Arata questions why they only have one picture of her, and his father explains that truly beautiful people often shy away from the camera. He asks Arata if he remembers the mysterious 8th room in the house, and Arata shares that he and the others believed it led to an Isekai. Arata tells his father that while he understands the recent revelation, he believes they can work through it, expressing pride in being his eldest son. As the future heir, Arata assures his father he will always look after his siblings, ensuring they all lead happy lives. After Arata leaves, his father gazes at his wife's picture, expressing pride in having adopted Arata's. The next morning, Arata goes for a run following his talk with his father. Meanwhile, the sisters are still grappling with Kotono's confession about wanting to marry Arata. As Minami steps outside, she bumps into Arata and feels anxious, recalling Kotono's words. Arata senses something is off and urges Minami to share, but she dodges the question and rushes off to practice for the inter-high tournament. Inside, Banri scolds the dog for overeating and lacking exercise, warning it might become a lazy, overweight pet. When Arata sees them, he joins in on the scolding, chastising the dog for refusing to jog with him and instead gorging itself. Suddenly, Banri suggests cutting back on the dog's food, which infuriates the dog, leading it to bite Arata in retaliation. Just then, Shion appears to grab breakfast, reminding Banri that she's late for her meeting. However, upon seeing Arata sprawled on the floor, they ponder what to do with him. Later, during tennis practice, Minami struggles to concentrate, still preoccupied with Kotono's declaration. Despite her lack of focus, her peers praise her, asking about her secret. Instead of a serious answer, Minami rambles about some nonsense involving lions and cats. Then she spots her senior, Nao, and challenges her to a match, wagering a drink. They engage in a playful tennis match that tests their agility, with Minami ultimately emerging victorious. While resting, Nao tells Minami that the inner high will be her last tournament, but she's not worried, knowing Minami is their great hope. She admits she initially thought Minami would be an arrogant brat. And while she is, Nao also recognizes her hard work. She hopes they both achieve their dreams, which warms Minami's heart. Minami jokes about Nao's motivational speech, causing Nao to blush, prompting her to challenge Minami to a rematch. Later, Minami learns that Nao didn't receive any college scholarships, forcing her to stop playing tennis and find a job after graduation. This reminds Minami of their first meeting, where Nao warmly welcomed her and invited her to play, ending in Minami's victory. Now Minami is determined to send Nao off with a gold medal, making it her mission. Back home, the maid calls for Arata, mentioning something about Minami. Arata confronts Minami while she's working out, startling her with his approach. Suddenly, Arata declares himself her trainer, and while she protests that she doesn't need one, he reveals he knows about her injury. He informs her that the maid caught her taping her ankles, and Arata plans to support her throughout her training. In her room, Uka reflects on Kotono's words. They wish to dismiss her seriousness, but Seiha cautions that since they aren't blood-related anymore, Kotono's feelings for Arata should be taken to heart, something Uka can't shake off tonight. Back at the gym, Arata assists Minami with her stretching to alleviate her injury. It brings back memories of their past stretching sessions, but now he notices how much Minami's body has transformed, from her soft skin to her more voluptuous curves. He quickly shifts the topic, asking Minami if she has informed her team about her ankle, to which she replies that she hasn't. Arata attempts to scold her, but Minami insists she wants to win the inner high, not just for herself, but for someone special. After finishing her stretches, she flips the script and starts stretching Arata. As she leans against his back, he feels her attributes pressing into him, yet to his surprise, she seems oblivious to it. Exiting the gym, Arata encounters Kotono, who freezes at the sight of him. He realizes this is their first moment alone since the amusing bathroom incident. She inquires if he was alone with Minami, worried she might spill something, and he confirms he was. Kotono presses on, asking if Minami acted strangely, and Arata, still flustered from their earlier stretching, assures her she didn't. Reda asks Kotono if she knows anything, but she becomes flustered and dashes to her room. Days later, Minami competes in the inter-high semi-finals, fighting through her pain and winning, propelling her team to the finals. Outside the bus, her teammates celebrate her victory, but as she walks inside, Minami suddenly feels intense pain in her ankle, realizing it now. Back home, Arata continues to assist Minami with her ankle stretches, but she informs him that after revealing her injury to her coach, she was assigned a private trainer. Arata understands he will be let go after the finals, but Minami expresses her gratitude for his help thus far. In his room, Arata puts away all his stretching books, realizing they aren't necessary for the time being. The next morning, Arata, sporting his chiseled abs, walks into the breakfast area where Banri is. He tries to caution her about only having cereal for breakfast, but she playfully teases him, suggesting that if she gains weight, Big Arata should help her with hot cardio. Arata asks if Minami has eaten yet, but Banri replies she hasn't seen her all day. At that moment, Seiha appears, also inquiring about Minami's location, which surprises them. When the others arrive, they ask if anyone knows where Minami is, but no one does. To their shock, Shion reveals that Minami's tennis shoes are still there, indicating she is missing and not with her team for the finals. They rush to search for Minami in her room, and when they can't find her, panic sets in. Suddenly, Minami appears, claiming she just returned from the convenience store. When they ask about her finals, she dismisses them, insisting she has it all under control. They turn to Shion for answers, but he admits he knows nothing. Feeling anxious, Arata heads to her room, expecting to find her in tears. To his surprise, Minami is happily munching away, enjoying her snacks. Arata voices his concerns, and she reveals that after her coach learned of her injury, she was removed from the team to protect her future. He asks if she's okay with not fighting for that special someone, but Minami brushes him off, saying she has no choice. Just as Arata is about to leave, he glances back and sees Minami smiling at him, albeit half-heartedly. As he steps outside, Shion confronts him, revealing something he hasn't shared with anyone. He tells Arata that earlier that morning he spotted Minami crying alone outside, choosing to ignore it because he knew she didn't want anyone to worry, even though she was deeply hurt. After hearing this, Arata storms into Minami's room and takes her outside, where Uka and the others are waiting to support her in the tennis finals. On their way, while the others fret about being late, Minami is lost in her thoughts. Recalling the moment she was removed from the team after confessing her injury, Minami pleaded to compete, knowing this was her last chance with tennis, wanting it to be a victory. Uka hugs Minami, thanking her, but urging her not to jeopardize her future for this. Arata tells Minami he's uncertain if they made the right choice and asks her to forfeit if anything goes awry. He also requests that she never lie to them or herself again. Meanwhile, Minami's team loses the doubles match, leaving only the singles competition to secure gold for her and the team. Back in the car, panic ensues as they find themselves stuck in traffic, and Arata contemplates their next move. Suddenly, they spot rental bikes by the roadside, and Seiya mentions she has the app to rent them. Arata quickly pulls Minami along to reach the competition, and she hands her tennis gear to him, wishing her luck. During the bike ride, Arata pushes himself to pedal as fast as possible, sweating and gasping for air. He reminds Minami of a time years ago when their school asked them to write letters for Mother's Day. But with their mother gone, each of them struggled to find words due to their sorrow, except for Minami. Back then, she expressed to her late mother how her siblings had grown closer in her absence, while Arata shared his appreciation for her unwavering smile during tough times. Arata tells Minami that while she may not be a genius, her hard work and positive spirit shine through, and he hopes she gets the recognition she deserves. In the end, she secures her victory in the singles match, allowing Minami's substitute to claim her own win. After a lengthy bike ride, Minami and Arata finally arrive at the team. Before Minami can speak, Arata drops to his knees, pleading with the coach to let her play, insisting that this game is crucial for her future. Moved by his words, the coach agrees to let Minami participate. As the match begins, Minami feels the pressure, but her family cheers from the stands, calming her nerves. Minami serves first, showcasing her talent and winning the initial point against her rival. The opponent serves again, this time making it tough for Minami, and just when she thinks she's ahead, the rival strikes back. Minami is forced to rely on her left ankle, straining it, yet she manages to score another point, risking injury. After a tough final, Minami's team is devastated as she loses the match. She tries to lift their spirits, apologizing for her defeat and jokingly offering to take a slap for all her pre-game boasting. Instead of a slap, they bow in gratitude, thanking her for helping them reach their competitive dreams. She hopes this loss won't impact her future, holding back tears. Meanwhile, her siblings wait for her to return home, aware that she's likely alone after the defeat. Arata searches for her and finds her sitting alone on a bench. Seeing him, Minami berates herself for letting them witness her embarrassment, even as her team expresses gratitude despite the loss. She thanks him and the others for their support, ready to turn the page after her defeat. However, Arata embraces her, urging her to stop deceiving herself while in his brotherly hold. Minami starts questioning what it takes to be good enough, from being the best player to winning Wimbledon and breaking records. She desperately seeks guidance on how to grow stronger to avoid future losses, and Arata reassures her that strength will come in time as she cries in his arms. Days after the defeat, Minami reflects on Arata's fierce support and comforting embrace, leaving her with a warm feeling. Meanwhile, Uka argues passionately, convinced that one of Minami's plays was unfairly ruled, which could have changed the game's outcome. She turns to Arata for his thoughts, but he dismisses her, emphasizing that Minami has no regrets. Minami steps into the fray, unable to meet Arita's gaze. Uka asks for her take, but to her irritation, Minami admits she no longer cares about the game, grateful she didn't worsen her injury. Minami sits directly across from Arata, who offers advice on her injury, but she can't bring herself to look at him. Still in denial about the outcome, Uka insists she will prove what really happened, convinced Minami should have won. Frustrated, she waves the ball around, causing the dog to think it's playtime. Suddenly, the ball slips and heads toward Minami, prompting the dog to leap at her, but Arata intervenes, catching the ball and sending her tumbling. He scolds Uka for her carelessness and checks on Minami. In that moment, Minami recalls how both Uka and Kotono expressed their feelings for Arata, pondering if her fluttering heart mirrors theirs. Later that night, Kotono contemplates her feelings for Arata when Ioka knocks on her door, wanting to discuss something. She enters complimenting Kotono's cute room that matches her style, but Kotono cuts to the chase, uninterested in small talk. Uka confronts Kotono about her confession to Arata, offering her support as a sister. Instead of responding, Kotono reveals she knows Uka also confessed during their trip, having seen her snuggling with Arata in the game room. Uka realizes her actions pushed Kotono to declare her feelings for Arata, clarifying that she misunderstood. She explains to Kotono that she expressed her love for Arata as his former twin sister, and insists nothing happened in the game room, which Kotono witnessed. Kotono leans in closely, asking Uka if she truly doesn't love Arata, and upon hearing her denial, Kotono visibly relaxes. She apologizes for the misunderstanding, but as Uka leaves the room, she can't stop thinking about Arata. Later, Banri panics, pleading with her siblings to accompany her to nursing school for something, but when they can't, she turns to her dependable brother, Arata. They sneak past security into Banri's nursing school, where she admits her fear of going alone due to ghost stories. Arata comments on how the school does seem haunted, causing Banri to panic and beg him to stop. Arata is puzzled as to why she chose nursing school, but when he asks, Banri remains silent. Suddenly, a loud noise startles them, and Banri clings to Arata, mistaking it for a ghost, but he reassures her it's just the wind. With her clinging to him, Arata feels her warmth and tries to pull away, but it only frightens her more, causing her to grip him tighter. Abruptly, Arata pulls her back and covers her mouth, urging her to be quiet. At that moment, a security guard walks by, making him question why they need to hide when Banri is a student there. Just then, Banri calls out, and he realizes he's been pushing against her chest, quickly letting her go. It reminds him of their playful past, but he now notices how much Banri has changed, feeling her softness. Finally, they reach Banri's club room, where she discovers the handmade dolls she forgot to take home. Arata asks about the dolls, and Banri shares the story of how she first got into nursing school. She was taken to visit a hospital. There, she encountered long-term patients, some joyfully playing, while others sat in despair. She noticed some students lifting the spirits of a sad child, bringing back his smile. Volunteers from her school. Inspired, she joined the school's volunteer club, determined to ensure no child left the hospital without a doll. Banri revealed to Arata that her motivation for nursing school stemmed from her childhood visits to their sick mother. During those visits, a nurse had comforted her, igniting her desire to become someone who could bring joy to others. As they walked home, Banri confided in Arata about her embarrassment in sharing her reasons for becoming a nurse. Grateful for his company, Banri teased Arata about how he must have enjoyed her earlier antics. Instead of replying, Arata walks away, leaving her to chase after him in a panic. The following day, Banri completes the dolls and distributes them to the sick children. She snaps a photo and sends it to Arata, thanking him for his assistance. Days later, Uka and her classmates receive their mock exam results. Curious, her friends ask about her grade, and Uka responds with her usual score, which doesn't surprise them. They boast about her consistent A grades and her potential as the next council president, unaware she actually scored a D. That weekend, Uka gets ready to leave, prompting Arata to inquire about her destination. When she mentions Yamanashi, Arata is taken aback, but she dismisses his surprise and departs. Arata is puzzled by her trip, knowing they have no relatives there, but assumes she needs time alone after recent events. However, after the weekend, Uka still hasn't returned home as school begins. The girls gather as usual, but without Uka, they feel the absence of their sister. Arata shares their concern, and at school, her friends question him, noting Uka has never missed a day before. He wonders what could be troubling Uka to make her disappear for 3 days. Back at home, Uka's absence means another missed school day, heightening the siblings' worries about her reputation. Zara asks Arata if Uka has reached out, and his lack of urgency frustrates her. Suddenly, Bonri appears with her phone, revealing that Uka has a GPS tracker after losing her phone before, and to their shock, Uka is at Mount Fuji. The girls panic, imagining the worst, but Shion reassures them. Meanwhile, Uka climbs Mount Fuji alone, reaching the summit to spend another night. The innkeeper remarks on her unusual length of stay, and Uka explains she has something important to witness. Back home, Arta decides to find her, and while Bonri expresses concern, Zera trusts him to bring Uka back. He takes an express train to Mount Fuji, contacting Bonri for Uka's location upon arrival. Bonri tells him Uka is at a higher elevation, leading Arata to assume she's in a mountain lodge. He walks alone, flashlight in hand, undeterred by the darkness, driven by his love for his sister. He admires Uka's courage to hike the trail solo, yet wonders why she chose Mount Fuji. At home, Minami and Kotono struggle to sleep, worried, but when Kotono voices her concern for Arata, Minami reassures her. After an hour of trekking, Arata arrives at the mountain lodge, surprising Uka. She asks why he's there, and he simply replies that he came to find her. Arata informs the innkeeper he'll stay the night, and she registers them in the same room, recognizing their sibling bond. He texts his family to let them know he found Uka, and they all breathe easier, relieved she's safe. Once in their room, Uka and Arata feel the awkwardness of sharing a bed. Uka suddenly tells him not to look as she prepares to change. He quickly turns away, feeling flustered by his unexpected thoughts about her, despite having seen her before. After she finishes changing, they settle in for the night, and Arata mentions they'll head back in the morning. To his surprise, Uka refuses to return home. He questions her reason for coming to Mount Fuji, but she deflects, asking if the others are worried. She reminds Arata that Mount Fuji is where their parents first met, a detail he had forgotten. She recounts how their father carried their mother down when she fell ill from the altitude. Uka expresses her belief that, like their parents, everyone has a destined partner from birth. To Arata's shock, she questions if that applies to their family, and while he dismisses it, she points out Kotono's feelings for him. He asks if this is what's been troubling her, but she remains silent, already asleep. Watching her, he sees his once arrogant sister as fragile, realizing Uka Shionji is just a normal girl. He tucks her blanket around her and goes to sleep, preparing for their journey home. However, when he wakes up, he finds Uka missing, with a note saying she left for home first. Doubt clouds his mind about her words, prompting him to reach out to Bonri for Uka's whereabouts. Bonri informs him that Uka remains at the mountain's peak, and Arata sets off in that direction. Uka, climbing alone, reaches the summit and stands there, puzzling other visitors who saw her the previous day. As the fog thickens, impatience grows within Uka. She questions her purpose there and decides to descend. Arata attempts to find her at the summit, but fails, assuming she has already returned to the lodge. Meanwhile, Uka becomes disoriented and realizes she's lost in the mountains with no one around. She calls out for help, but as she slips down the slope, death seems to beckon her. In agony, she discovers her leg is severely injured and screams for assistance. Back with Arata, the innkeeper reveals that Uka hasn't come back, and her belongings remain untouched. At home, Bonri loses track of Uka's signal and is left unaware of her location. As death looms, Uka's life flashes before her, recalling the moment her father gifted her mother's earrings. Curious about their meeting, she asks her father, who recounts how he saved her mother on Mount Fuji. To her father was a prince who met his princess atop Japan's tallest mountain, assuring her she'd find her own prince. Uka suddenly awakens, realizing she had dozed off for a brief moment. Recognizing her peril, she feels it's irrelevant, having caused her family distress once more. She gazes at the earring from her father, but it slips from her grasp. Struggling to locate it in the fog, she spots a glimmer reflecting off it, guiding her to retrieve it. Looking up, she finds the source of the light, Arata, her prince, reminding her of her father's words about destiny. Years ago, whenever Uka needed to vent, her father was always there, listening with a warm smile. However, recent events have made it difficult for Uka to share her thoughts with him. Even when he inquired, she brushed him off. On Mount Fuji, Arata notices Uka's leg injury and immediately tells her to climb onto his back. She tries to act tough, insisting she can walk, but Arata insists she stop and get on his back. Meanwhile, their siblings are filled with anxiety, unaware of the situation on the mountain, prompting their father to cancel his meeting and return home. On the mountain, Arata carries Uka back toward the trail, slowly making their way to their lodging. He soon realizes that the heavy rain makes it hard to walk and breathe. Suddenly, Uka reveals that her reason for climbing was a TikTok claiming that bringing a deceased person's belongings could allow one to meet them again. Now she understands it's futile since she doesn't truly belong to her mother and lacks a real family. Tears welling up, she laments how she can no longer confide in her father, aware that everything has shifted despite reassurances. With her grades slipping and her mind overwhelmed, she feels lost. From the depths of his heart, Arata reassures Uka that regardless of the past, he remains her twin, which is why he found her. Even if they aren't a traditional family, Arata promises to always support her and be a shoulder to cry on. Uka feels emotional, and as Arata continues to speak, she finds herself crying on his shoulder. They exit the inn and descend the mountain, only to find Banri and the others waiting, expressing their worry over Arata's silence. Upon seeing Uka's injury, Banri switches to protective mode, fretting over her well-being. They explain that Minami insisted they pursue them, and when Arata thanks her, Minami blushes. During the car ride home, they ask Uka why she ventured to Mount Fuji, and not wanting to reveal the truth, she says she wanted to see where their parents met. They accept her explanation kindly, but Uka feels guilty for their kindness after her reckless actions, realizing she can't share the real reason. Suddenly, Arata leans against her shoulder and falls into a deep sleep. Uka blushes, recalling how she once scolded Arata for lacking gentlemanly behavior, teaching him to offer his shoulder to women. Arata argued for gender equality, and Uka agreed that women should also offer their shoulders to men, provided they are romantic partners. Now Uka can't help but reflect on her own words, seeing Arata as a romantic partner, allowing him to rest on her shoulder. Upon arriving home as the others prepare to unload the car, Uka notices Arata isn't waking and feels his high temperature. Shion then carries Arata to his room to rest, just as their father appears, concerned for his children. They explain how Arata carried Uka through the rain, and he praises his son for his bravery, telling everyone to take a break. Later that night, Uka meets her father, sharing her struggles to connect with him, longing to hug him like before. However, after the mountain incident, Arata made her realize her love for her father, and she embraces him warmly, which he welcomes. The next day, Uka returns to school, greeted warmly by her friends. However, they express concern for Arata's illness. Later at home, Banri prepares porridge for Arata, and once it's ready, she asks if anyone wants to deliver it to him. Minami and Kotono both eagerly want the role, each curious about the other's excitement to serve porridge to Arata. Banri nudges Minami to deliver it to Arata, whispering her concerns about Kotono possibly getting too cozy in his room, unaware that Minami shares the same thoughts. Uka arrives and Seiha reminds everyone that she should be the one caring for Arata after his heroic act. Uka dismisses their concerns, claiming the muscular fool will manage just fine. She heads off for a bath, contemplating her next move, and once done, announces the bathroom is free before sneaking into Arata's room to fetch the porridge bowl. Upon entering, Uka apologizes for the earlier incident and shares her genuine happiness that Arata came to her rescue. She confides in Arata that one question she wished to ask their deceased mother was if it was acceptable for her to love him. Even without meeting their mother, she now understands her feelings for him, thanks to his comforting presence during her time of need. While the others are oblivious downstairs, Uka finds herself alone in Arata's room, kissing him softly and savoring the moment. Meanwhile, Arata sleeps soundly. After the kiss, she takes the porridge bowl and exits, promising to return. Unbeknownst to her, Arata is wide awake, pondering what on earth just happened. Days later, seeking fresh air, Arata and the others head to their family's vacation home, a place filled with memories from past holidays. This time, it's just the siblings, as their father is absent. As Arata envisions their usual sleeping arrangements, Banri pops up from behind, teasing him about shaking the bed with her, prompting Arata to scold her for her inappropriate thoughts. Glancing at Uka, he can't shake the memory of her kiss, believing he was asleep. He wonders what Uka meant when she confessed her feelings for him. Noticing Arata lost in thought, Uka approaches him, asking if everything is all right. He tries to brush her off, but when he catches sight of her tempting lips, the same ones that kissed him, he panics and bolts. Later, while lost in thought during a shower, Shion barges in, reminding Arata that he forgot to close the door. Curious, Arata asks where Shion had been, and to his surprise, Shion admits he was searching for his biological parents, revealing he suggested this trip for that purpose. Unfortunately, he shares that he was unsuccessful in his search. Shion inquires if Arata is also interested in finding his real parents, to which Arata replies that while he's curious, he only sees their father as his true dad, believing family isn't defined by blood. After hearing this, Shion tells Arata he's given up on finding his real parents and now feels the same way, considering his current family as his true one. The next morning, while the others are still asleep, Uka wakes up early, only to discover Arata is missing and finds him in the sauna tent, warming up. However, lost in thoughts about Shion's family search and her own feelings, he overheats and steps out, only to find Uka waiting for him, intensifying his embarrassment. His mind races with thoughts of Uka being so close, especially since she's been trying to get even closer, unaware he was awake during their kiss. She then invites him to join her in the sauna for a challenge, but feeling awkward, he suggests she go alone. To his surprise, she chooses to sit beside him instead, making him even more flustered. He quickly convinces her to do the endurance test together, and they enter the sauna as they used to, but this time, Arata can't help but notice her body glistening with sweat from the heat. Out of the blue, she asks if he's thinking about getting a girlfriend, and not wanting to make things awkward, he replies that he's not interested right now. Overwhelmed by the heat, Arata exits the sauna, causing Uka to worry and ask if he's no longer infatuated with Lala, his longtime crush. Reflecting on it, he admits that despite their past, he has moved on from Lala and isn't so pathetic as to cling to old feelings. Uka beams at his words and rushes off to shower, conflicted by her emotions, wanting to be close to Arata. She recalls all the moments spent with Arata in the sauna, asking him if he has a crush on anyone. Now she realizes that even back then, she had already developed feelings for him. Meanwhile, Arata wonders if Uka's feelings mirror those of Kotono, prompting him to take action. Just then, Minami appears, inviting him to go somewhere. To his surprise, they arrive at a flower garden, a place Arata wouldn't expect Minami to choose, but considering she's a girl, he notices her newfound interest and her more feminine attire. However, as he looks around, he sees couples on dates and questions why Minami would pick this spot. Suddenly, she asks Arata what his ideal wife would be like, catching him off guard, and he gives a simple answer about wanting someone he can be comfortable with. Her question reminds him of Uka's earlier inquiries, leaving him confused. Then Arata notices Minami's skirt still has a price tag, and as she struggles to remove it, he steps in to help. As they fumble, both feel flustered, and Arata ends up biting the price tag off. Afterward, they enjoy their time at the park, taking photos to capture the day, and before long, 2 hours fly by. Arata suggests they head home, and suddenly Minami confesses that she loves someone. Not knowing who it is, Arata expresses his happiness for his little sister, and as he reflects on their date, he realizes she was using him as practice. She thanks him for the helpful trip and dashes off flustered to buy some merchandise. There, she picks out matching items for both of them to show her gratitude, and all Arata cares about is her happiness. Yet, recalling Minami's confession, he can't help but think of Uka's feelings, causing his mind to race. Comment below with hot steamy sauna if you made it to the end. Next week, we'll return with a fresh recap of the latest episode. Hit that subscribe button to catch the next video.